Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. Here are the three big stories for today. So, the first is multiple parts of kind of the donations that have been flowing into Ukraine. That's the first big story. So, Ukraine gets Australian funding pledge for air defense drones. Here we see that the pledge includes $50 million in military assistance. It'll include delivery of air to ground precision munitions of $50 million, short range air defense systems. So, $100 million in assistance. And then we have the Danish defense minister talking about training of Ukrainian pilots is progressing. The goal is to transfer the first F-16 aircraft to Ukraine this summer. So it can't come soon enough. Next, we have Belgium may also supply some F-16 aircraft to Ukraine this year. They're working out that and working out the details. Canada is trying to allocate another 13 million for the Czech initiative, and that is on top of another 3 million for Ukraine for the production of drones for their Ukraine's domestic defense industry. And it marks the first time that Canada is contributing directly to the production of drones in Ukraine. So they're working at it. Overall, the Ramstein Coalition pledged $95 billion in military aid to Ukraine over 2 years. Now, that's not nothing, and it's not. I mean, okay, so when I look at it and go, wow, that's great, but just you gotta make sure that they have everything that they need for an ongoing, because if you just look at the size, the GDP of Russia is about the size of a little bit north of Florida's GDP. The West has the means, they just have to have the will to actually to support Ukraine like they need to. Okay, second big story, and it's not something that's happening so much as what needs to happen next. With the aid battle won in Washington, we must help Ukraine win the next phase of the war. So that'll include about four things. There are four things that the United States must do immediately to help Ukraine change the dynamics of the conflict and usher in a new phase of the war. The top priority must be rushing the delivery of weapons and munitions needed to stabilize the front. They're doing that. That's one. Second, Ukrainians also need help in securing the skies. So that's coming with air defense systems, and to some degree, it'll be coming when F-16s arrive as well. That'll help bolster that. Number three, Ukrainian forces on the front lines also lack the proper protection from the skies. Oh, this is part of this, number two. It was one of the main reasons why Ukraine's counteroffensive last summer stalled. There's no point in Western countries keeping advanced defense systems locked away in storage thousands of miles from where they're desperately needed. Okay, here's number three. It's also time to give Kyiv the weapons needed to strike deep inside Russian-occupied Ukraine in places like Crimea. They need long-range weapons, no question about it. And then four, and finally, another important point that's often overlooked is the need to scale up the size of the basic training of the Ukrainian armed forces. The Ukrainian government recently passed a law reducing the age of conscription from 27 to 25. This could lead to the creation of a much larger Ukrainian army. Now, mobilization is on Ukraine. Like, the West can't do anything, but they can provide the training, and that would be very, very useful for Ukraine's success. Okay, last story. Ukraine tops 6 out of 43 countries for belief in democracy. Now, one of the arguments that we have, people say, well, why is it that we should support Ukraine? I mean, they're all corrupt. Isn't that part of Russia, like little Russia, or all those kind of fanciful statements if you don't want to have anything to do with this? Ukraine's a democracy. They believe in democracy. In the same way that, like, America is not, and I'm speaking to Americans, right? America is not an ethnicity. It is not a race. It's not a religion. It's not this. It's not that. It's an idea, and we subscribe to these ideas of how a democratic constitutional republic should operate, and we've institutionalized those ideas. That's what we believe in. Ukraine actually believes in democracy. It's one of the highest ranking in the world. Okay, let's look at the article from which this draws on in Euromaidan Press. The poll conducted by the Rating Sociological Group in collaboration with Gallup International is part of the end of the year 2023 project from around 43 countries. And it indicates that 64% of Ukrainian respondents believe that democracy may have its flaws, but it's the best system of government. Okay, so you have one that about more than 2/3 of the country believes that democracy is the best way to go. And this is a post-Soviet state that 30 plus years ago was actually part of the Soviet system, or like, wow. Okay. Um, and so now they believe that democracy may have its flaws, but it's the best system of government. Contrast that to this. In Russia, only 22% agree that democracy is the best form of government, part of that same Soviet system, and they're in very different places. Okay, so if we move a little further, joining the ranks of European nations like Sweden, who else believes that, now again, this places Ukraine sixth among the surveyed countries, after Sweden, Austria, Germany, Spain, and Switzerland. Those are the top five countries. So it seems like you have like a moral obligation to support a democracy that really believes in democracy, that's trying headlong to become more democratic, invaded by an authoritarian neighbor. Okay, let's keep going. Ukraine has entered the top 10 countries where citizens feel that their country is governed by the will of the people. So it's not just that they say they believe theoretically in democracy, like, oh, yeah, democracy would be a great idea, but they actually are trying to practice it as well. They also have corruption, we get that, but they're moving away from corruption, where Russia keeps tending to be more and more corrupt. Okay, where citizens feel that their country is governed by the will of the people, with 44% in agreement and 17% in partial agreement. 30%, 36% do not share this view. So just over a third do not share that view that the government or the country is governed by the will of the people. So I thought, wow, this is really interesting. So I followed the story to a further poll, right? And when I click on that, I get to this article. And when I translate that, I see this. Okay, this is recently the rating sociology group, same story. Okay, what I want to point out here is that most of those who disagree with the idea, so again, remember, they're saying that democracy is the best form of government. Democracy may have its flaws, but it's the best system of government. In general, 64 agree, right? Most of those who disagree with the fact that democracy is the best form of government among those surveyed are, and what countries are they going to be? Iraq. I thought we were a nation building in Iraq. What happened there? Kenya. Kenya is a former British colony. Pakistan, Peru, and Moldova. I thought the Moldova one was pretty interesting. Okay, and what about that their country is governed by the will of the people? Well, those that agree are Sweden, India, Afghanistan, Kosovo, Switzerland, Malaysia are among the countries that believe that their state is being governed by the will of the people. The least feel that the people rule the country are in Bosnia, Herzegovina, Russia, Bulgaria, and North Macedonia. What a contrast. All right, so that's all that I have here. I want to emphasize, it's really important to emphasize that, like, if Ukraine really is a democracy, really wants to be democratic, really is trying to be democratic, it seems like we have a moral obligation. It's not on paper, it's not a contract, but we have a moral obligation to do what we can to help them preserve their democratic independence. All right, that's all that I have. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and the coffees. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.